Okay, why are you here? Why didn't you come? No,
Betty said
actually,
come.
yeah, I gotta review who's from York because sometimes I don't know. I know you two, you were there. Margaret?
Marilyn and Eddie
Yes, and what's your name?
Shingleton.
Okay, and then these guys, just introduce yourselves.
Ramona and Don Ellison.
And they organized the reunion for years and years. I think someone else helped them out this year.
These two,
Okay, these two here,
yes.
and that's Gary and,
Maxine.
okay, what'd you say?
Bracken.
That's right. And he's one of the boys in the dorm. Yeah, the only one who showed up this time. And then these guys were actually classmates of Denny. I don't think anyone else was a classmate here.
Ran track with Denny.
That's right. And I got that whole thing. It was fun hearing stories. Dave remembered the story you told me, that Denny had pulled a muscle and couldn't run in track anymore, and that's when you beat him. But I don't remember that injury. It
I
must have
don't
been
know the
serious.
440s until he quit running the 100, and then he ran the 440 and beat me every time.
But then he pulled a muscle,
Yeah, he pulled a muscle in the lower leg.
and then he couldn't do that. He did other things though, didn't he, other races?
Up to that time, he had been the top man in the 100-yard dash. He ran the 100-yard dash in less than 10 seconds.
Did you hear that, Dave? Did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. Because those are things I don't remember about my husband. The rest of the people here, Norm, of course, knew my husband, because he was a boy in the dorm, but I don't remember where, and then this guy, remember Helen Jo Polk?
I do.
Yeah. We were friends with her, I call them off-duty friends, like, you know, we have fun on our own without the college knowing what we're doing. And he was part of that, and this is his daughter, and her mother was in, this is Moray, and his daughter, her mother was in the choir with us. Were you in the choir?
No.
No, that's right. You said the way you said it, no. Anyway, so, what?
Carol was in the choir with him.
You were? So there were a lot of people I didn't know because I was married, and the other girls were in the dorm. So there were only a few of the girls. If they were in an activity that I was in, then I knew them. But there were a lot of girls in the dorm I didn't know. Now, I want to meet these people here. So you know who, Crystal, what's your name? Crystal. You know who Crystal is, everybody?
Crystal.
Okay, do you folks know Crystal?
I just met her.
Okay,
I know the one in blue.
and this is her assistant, and this is one of her daughters.
That's
And,
Lily.
do you remember me, hon? We met, I sat in your, if you say no, I'm gonna be real embarrassed, just lie. I sat down in your booth at a restaurant and just chatted with you girls for a little bit.
Okay.
That's okay, you don't have to tell the truth. It was fun, your girls are just charming, fun, open, but these two gals I don't know, I don't remember you.
It'd be amazing if you did remember, we've never met. I work here at the library.
Oh, you do? Oh, thank you for coming. I love your hair. Because see, I want that hair. This is.
You don't want the way I got my hair.
That's okay. No, I don't like. I think I'll change hairstyle. I think. Dave, would you take a picture of my hair? I'm serious. That's the only way they'll look at. I can't describe. I'm serious. You can do it anytime you want.
I'm Joanne Priest, I'm from the area.
From the area. What's your name?
Joanne.
Say it again.
Joanne.
Joanne, yeah. I have hearing aids, but it doesn't always pick up what it's supposed to pick up. You know what I mean? It's especially in a big room. I think it gives me more feedback than I need. So you live here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this last year my two daughters came with me so I could come to the reunion, and they just couldn't stop driving around the area. And we did a little bit of it this morning. So Dave and Nola have not been here before, but there's only one other kid who won't see it, but I don't think I'm going to drag him along. It's a long journey when you can't make it by yourself anymore. You've got to have
We
someone.
drag you.
Yeah, they drag me along.
We won.
But I think Nola even said something today. Nola, when we were driving all over, we had to go back because someone had a big garden we had to see. And you said there was something so different about a town like this, and I don't remember what you said. It was just perfect. Do you remember? We were talking.
We were talking about how there's no fences, and in
Yes.
California, they're all 6 feet or
Yeah.
more, fences in the yards. and-
Yeah, and a garden like that, right out where people could see it. It wasn't private. And there's a feeling that we used to be accustomed to in a community. It's a quiet, green, just houses, and then it's also a feeling of other things going on that are not Silicon Valley things. Like there are trucks, manly stuff for farmers and
They called it earthy.
earthy, yes, and then of course the air is quite earthy. We don't have air conditioning, I don't, a lot of people don't. So getting used to that feel, but it brings back memories. Just going out from a cold store out to that warmth that just, here's a new guy. Oh, I know who that is. A new guy, a warmth that just envelops you like a wet blanket kind of, but you get used to it. Isn't this your husband?
No.
Oh,
He looks like him though, except less good looking.
I have to see who everyone is.
Titus.
What is your name?
Titus.
Say it again.
Titus.
Your first name?
Titus.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it
looks
is,
like
yeah.
this.
No, Titus.
This, okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you live here?
I do. I went to college here.
So
He works here now.
Yeah.
He works for the college.
Okay, so we got, these two people work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Is she the one, I hate to ask this, is she the one who opened the book and gasped?
Yes, that was her.
I won't tell that. I won't tell. I've told a lot of people at home about it, but not here.
Oh, poor Morgan. She's blushing now.
Probably afterwards. I just couldn't stop laughing. Okay, now, here's what I want to know. What's our time?
About an hour.
Okay, so it's actually, I've used up, what, 5 minutes? Probably, say yeah. Okay, help me out. So I'll watch the clock. I don't want you turning around to look at the clock. That would really embarrass me. If you want to see how we're going, just sneak a look. But I will have to go like this and keep track of time. So in a way, I'm kind of, this is kind of what I call, keep this so I can kind of lean on it now and then. Kind of interactive program, because there might be things that I just want to ask you. I forgot to introduce, back up, time out. These are my 2 children. My oldest son, Dave, and his wife, Nola. And this is my editor. And I want you to turn around so they can see. This is the editor. She's been with me since 1998. This is her mother, Vonnie, and I just met Vonnie this morning for the first time. But Sandy and I would, goodness sakes, I mean, we work together so well that it's a partnership that I wouldn't ever think of severing at all. We have so much fun editing my stories. Do you want to say a word or two? Just do me a favor. I'm serious, Sandy. You're an editor after all. Stand up for just a minute. Oh, for just a minute. I'm serious about this. We are so close and we don't live anywhere near each other. And I've probably seen you how many times in my life? 6?
Maybe.
About 6 times since,
We met online.
since 18 years. 18 years, actually. And so, do you want to ask her about anything about editing? What do you do when you edit something? Someone ask her something, because she's very smart. Okay, here.
What is the process of editing?
Good.
Well, the process with other clients is much different than the process I use with Betty. and part of that, we use a very collaborative process. And so when we work together, she sends me stories that sometimes aren't what she would consider to be a final product, and then we work together on the wording, so we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, coming up with the right wording, and I'll make suggestions to her, or completely rearrange certain passages. Typically with clients, by the time they send me something, they pretty much figure that it's ready, and I'm just going to find a few things. And so I may send it back 1 or 2 times, but it's much more of a client-consultant relationship, and with Betty, it's also a friendship. Because we met in a writing group initially.
Yeah, online.
And hit it off.
Yeah.
And so we started talking by phone, and then she was doing her book, and she found out that I did editing as well, and so she asked me to edit her first book. And
Do
so
you remember the first, we started out with just stories, because I didn't have a book.
Right.
Stories, and I said, I would like to have one of my stories edited, would you do it? And you said you'd do it for free. I said, no, I don't want to do that. And so we finally agreed that you would edit Camping Alone. That was the first story.
That's right.
Camping Alone. I said, let's just see how it works. And of course, that's before we used the edit tracking system online. We developed our own system for, back and forth. So, it was fun doing that story, and that's in another book. And then just one thing led to another, but that's a long time to be with someone like me.
We have so much fun. When you're edit with her, she's just as much fun as she is when she's doing her presentations. And we laugh because she will make a typographical error that changes the entire meaning of the sentence. And
Sometimes it's really not nice.
Betty, do you realize what you just said? Here, reread this sentence. And she goes, oh my gosh! And then we laugh about that, or she'll change a sentence and I'll say, well, that's not quite going to work because now you have the dog doing what the human is supposed to be doing. It's a fair amount of work that I just love. A lot of people don't like editing. Just, oh, I hate that part. I said, not me. Yes, we have a lot of fun.
We work together very well. So it's a relationship that I value.
I've got a question.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
Editing would require a lot of English knowledge, right? I'm an English
yeah.
major and
I'm not an English major, but my grandmother was an English teacher, and she edited my letters when it sent back and forth. And so I developed very early on a love for anything to do with words. And I was always the kid in English class when they would call us up to the front when they diagram sentences. We remember that. They don't do that anymore. And she would say, would somebody like to volunteer other than Sandy? So I've always had a love for it, and so I did a lot of editing in other jobs. And then I decided to go ahead and actually become an editor.
Well, she lives, where do you live? Tell them where you live.
In Pawnee City, Nebraska. So I'm in Nebraska.
That's why I haven't seen her that often. And when we do, it's a lot of fun. We have a great time. But I was going to say that, I forgot what it was. That's going to happen a lot. It's just very embarrassing. And it was so good, or I wouldn't have thought it up. Okay, I'll think of it later.
So do you do freelance, or you work for a publisher? Or?
I do freelance work. And I love it.
Yeah, it's actually, someone said, why do you stay with the same editor? Why don't you move around? I said, why would you move around? Well, you just get an idea for other people. I said, I don't need any ideas for other people. We're just lucky, Sandy.
We are.
Because it's fun to edit, and when an edit is finished, we think it's finished, one more person looks at it, and that is my writing coach that I don't hire. I rarely hire anymore, but I used to hire him a lot. He's a professor that I met at a conference. And he looks at the whole picture, and he would embed into each story, capital letters, what was missing. And all Sandy and I had to do is go back over it and jazz it up, and add what he felt was missing. Sometimes we didn't agree with him, we just didn't tell him. But thanks,
And other times
Sandy.
he would say, you two have it, just do what you want.
Yeah, he does, and I think he trusted us on that. So after we fix it, we don't send it back, because we don't want any more input. We think that's good. And we're working on what's called Book 4 right now. We don't know what else to call it.
Stay tuned.
Anyway, Sandy, I did want them to meet you, because you're important in my life. Anyway, so the thing here is, this brought, where's that little bag
It's back
of
here.
books? Okay, I just wanted to show you, and I'll kind of cover a lot of territory, but then I'll also, I'd like to tell you a few stories too. I actually, after Denny died, my husband who brought me here as a bride, after he died, I was an art teacher. I taught for San Jose Unified School System. And my son did too at one time, and he followed in some schools where I used to teach. But he pronounces our last name correctly, and so they didn't realize we were related, because I had moved on to another school. So my husband's family, and everyone here, always called Denny Auchard, right? Auch, they even called him Auch. But the lady who taught the languages here, I really liked her. She said, "You're not pronouncing the name right." And I said, "I can't change it at all." But my son has changed it. So people know him as Betty Auchard. They don't know we're related at all. Even though, you know, he followed a school where I taught. Okay, after Denny died, and it was 18 years ago actually, July 9th, cancer, I started to write. So this is what, I was very active in art, and Denny helped me with that a lot, because we taught, he helped me teach in campgrounds some craft things using leaves, nature printing and that kind of thing. When we traveled in our motorhome. So we had a good life with, he was not artistic, but he helped me a lot in my endeavors. But after Denny died, I actually didn't know what to do with myself. And you only understand this if you've been widowed, a widower or a widow. And I kept writing down things that happened that just, the way I felt, like it didn't seem real. I didn't feel like this was my street or my house. It's a very unusual thing that your whole system kind of goes through. And I couldn't stop writing every little thought I had that was weird on a piece of paper, and I would put it actually in the junk drawer because it's so handy. Or if I was upstairs, I would put it in the underwear drawer or whatever was handy. But I'd grab just a piece of paper and I'd write it down on there. And it wasn't like journaling that I was planning on saving, I just wanted to write it down. And I think it was the act of writing it down that helped me. I didn't even realize that writing was my tool for healing. And so I started writing like the day after Denny died. We knew he wasn't going to live. He died at home. But Dave and I we decided to go looking for something that he and his dad were looking for. Just get out of the house. And I remember we were at a garage sale looking for it. What was it? It was the machine that cuts the bowls. A lathe. We were looking at following up an edge. And then I was sitting in whatever, I thought it was a truck we were driving, because we thought we were going to bring a lathe home. We had borrowed, I think, your dad's truck. And we were driving, we were real quiet, and I said, "Dave, this is so weird. Dad died yesterday, and we're going to garage sales." And it was that kind of thing that would just startle me. But it's the way you function. You just do whatever you have to do, or what you feel that you don't want to do, or that you want to do. And so I wrote all these notes. And it took about, I would say, about 3 months for me to stop writing notes, and I wrote on notebook paper. And my first story was called Applesauce for Denny. And it's a story about applesauce, because one night when I was making the applesauce, if you've ever made it, have you ever made applesauce? It takes like, you don't just make it quick, do you? It's like hours. And so, and it's hot weather during that time, and evening is the worst time for widowed people, and evening is when I would feel all weepy, and I was stirring the applesauce, and I was thinking, why am I don't even like applesauce. Why am I making it? And so I got to thinking about it, and I thought, Denny's the one who liked it. I was always making it for him, but I didn't want to waste the apples that these people gave us. So I kept making it. And tears flowing and stir. And then I just decided I got to write this down. And so I wrote it down, and it was just, I mean, it was so pathetically sad that it was it just made me feel so good to get it all out on paper. And then I still had a long time to go to finish the applesauce. So I had another story that I wanted to get down because I kept telling people, and it was called Driving Denny. It was when I drove his cremains home from the burying place.
Funeral home.
You know, and they came and asked me if I wanted a little, yes, I said I did, want a little bit. And it was such an odd experience because I never drove Denny. He didn't like my driving at all. And when he got sick, I had to drive him. And he was still a backseat driver. And I tried not to get mad because he was sick. And then I realized I had this precious little container in a velvet thing. And I put it in the passenger seat. I put a seatbelt on it. And I only lived like a few blocks from the funeral home. And I got to looking at it, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is the first time he was my passenger isn't saying a word about my driving. And it made me laugh and cry, and I could hardly see to get home. I was laughing and crying. So that was the next story. But this is like 6 years of writing my way through widowhood. It is not a how-to book, how to get through. It's just how I did. And it's actually a very upbeat and revealing story about what widowers do, what widowed people do not to be lonely sometimes. The people they think they're flirting with, you know, and they're not flirting at all. They were just kind of checking something on the ground near you. And so you have to love it. Because there was a period there where I thought, men are flirting with me. But they weren't. It was a revelation. So that was my first book. But then I fell in love with writing, and I joined all of these classes, because that's where we met, in an online writing class called 30-Minute Writers. And my problem wasn't finding 30 minutes a day to write. It was finding 30 minutes a day not to write. I was totally enveloped in it. And I was writing these 2 books at the same time, actually. This was getting close to the end. This one and this book, I don't know that many of you have seen this book. This was about 10 years, off and on, because I was now in classes that were asking me to write stories about my life. This was about my life too, but not one that I would have found in a writing class. So this was an online writing class, and this is where we really get the memoir stories. That's when I was really learning how to use a computer. So this actually is a true memoir of my growing up with my really unusual parents. Wacky might be a better word to use instead of unusual. But it is also upbeat. It's about growing up during the Depression, World War II, very poor. My parents, both of them, lived, they grew up blue-collar families, farm family, and during the Depression especially. And they both had to drop out of school, as a lot of kids did, whose parents weren't highly educated, to help the family. And so my mother dropped out of school in 9th grade. My dad also, he had to drop out because they had 10 kids in their family. So they were not, my parents were not educated, but my mother was probably, if she could be diagnosed now, probably would have been a, what is it, the acronym for it? Bipolar. But they didn't know that word then. So she would, you just never knew, you walked on eggs, but she was so creative and funny and likable that my parents married each other and divorced each other 3 times, trying to make it work. They'd always end up back together, but they got along better when they weren't married. And they tried to get married together again when they were in their 70s, and they called me first to see, what do you think about us getting married again? And I said, I don't think you should. I mean, it never worked before. Why would it work now? And he said, well, it's just not right for us just to live together. But they really wanted to get together again. And in the background, my mother actually swore. She says, I'm not married. I won't say the swear word here. But anyway, she said, I don't mind living with him again, but I'm not going to marry him again. So they didn't get married because my dad, I think he believed it was maybe more noble to marry and divorce, you know, than to live with someone unmarried. So they didn't. He didn't want to live together again. It wouldn't have worked. Anyway, they stayed friends till he died, actually. It's a very colorful book, and the people who really identify with it a lot are people my age, because it's all of the things we grew up with. But even one of my granddaughters was, when she was in the 5th grade, she gave a book report on it. In the back is Betty's history lessons, and it's quite a few pages of all the things that you ran into during our time. And some of you, let's see, the hip parade. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
The hip parade. And a lot of people now would not know what that is. Let's see, what else? Buffalo Bob. The Cedar Rapids Gazette. No, that was my hometown. You would know about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that book, this book, they're both electronic and audio book. Now, this book is the one that just got published, and it is. And this is how it started. I wasn't planning on writing this, but at the very beginning there's a little introduction called "Pregnant with Stories," the birth of a book. 13 years ago, the seed for this book was planted in an email to my cousin Don in Iowa. He wanted to know what it was like being a dorm mother. That was here, you know, for 12 boys in the 1950s. In the subject line of my response, I had written a letter to him, and the subject line I said, "Dorm mother has shootout on stairs." And he wrote back, "Your letter really made me laugh." So I put both emails in a folder titled Stories and Letters, where they would be safe. Saving them seemed more important than using them at the time. Now, 8 years later, I enrolled in a writing class at the community center, and I needed an idea for my first assignment. And I found that email, and I dug it out, that story about the shootout on the stairs. And that one story grew into the 28 chapters you're about to read. So that shootout on the stairs was with Chuck Emery.
Oh.
No, of course you haven't read this yet. But that was, I'll just tell you about that story. But anyway, this was about a little over 5 years, and I realized that my three books were published 5 years apart. So Sandy and I are working on book 4, which is all the leftover stories for assignments, and we'll find a theme. We're working on them. There are so many of them. That means I've got to stay healthy till I'm 90. You know, so if people, when I'm dead and famous, and they'll read my, in Wikipedia, you know, because one of you will have to write into Wikipedia, you'd be a good one. She was, I see I forgot my thought. I should not embroidery on stories. What was I saying?
Every 5 years.
Oh, they will notice, my goodness, she published a book every 5 years. 4 till she was 90. Then look at how fast people write books now, like in 6 months. And I don't know how they do it, Sandy. They really shouldn't go that fast. They should take more time. Now, what I would like, this was also, this one was in, I meant to tell you this, is in Spanish, because I've never sold this. I've just donated it. We've got a lot of Spanish organizations, churches, community centers, and I've always donated this book because they just give it away free. To this book, this first one is the one that has actually done better. No, back than the other 2 books. Back to this one. I met Denny. I had 1 year of college, and I was real excited about school, and I was looking forward to continuing with it. But I had to get a summer job after my freshman year at Greeley, Colorado, the Teachers College. So I was really looking forward to getting back to it. And a friend of mine from college asked me if I would sing. I was real involved in music. if I would sing at her wedding in June. I said, sure, that would be fun. And then the closer we got to June, the more I felt like, oh, I wish I hadn't said that. Because there are other things I want to do this summer. Got to get a job, and I just don't want to be tied down with singing that solo. So I told her that I was backing out. I thought she was going to just faint. I mean, she was crying, and she's, how could you do this to me? And I realized, oh my, I've got to sing. I can't drop her. And so that's where I met Danny, because it was so divinely, planned. And he was the best man. He was the best man. Did you guys know Bob? What's his name? Gillespie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Gillespie, and then Shaney Phil, and then the other guy, Harvey. Okay, those three guys were in the wedding, and so they were tall guys. Denny was a little bit shorter. But Denny and I were just attracted to each other immediately, and we started dating. He was there just for summer school, and he lived here, but he was back there for summer school. So we dated on the weekends. It wasn't like we saw each other a lot. When I think about it, we were married like 4.5 months after we met, and I think about it, I thought, if one of my kids did that, I think I would really have a serious talk with them. Because it was only on the weekends, and but I almost dumped him because I thought he was too old for me. He was slightly premature gray. I wasn't even 19. I was like 18 and a half at the Temples. And he said he was on the faculty at York College. Well, that was like a professor in New York. That's what my brain said. Oh my, he's out of your league. You can't. I was just so sad about it. And then when we saw him again, he explained it was from Nebraska, York College, Nebraska, and he was only 23. I thought he was like 27 or something really old, And I just thought, oh, I'm back, man. I've got a chance. So the thing was, Denny he was very mature. Was that a good word? He was very ethical. What are some of the words with people who didn't know Denny? He wasn't boring, but he was quiet. And I was all of the things he was, I wasn't. I was just the opposite. So he was born mature. He came as a baby. Now, and I was more lively and outgoing, and he had to have little talks with me a lot after he brought me here. He was fine while we dated. I thought, gosh, he's fun. He was just no fun all of a sudden. But we got like, what happened to that guy that I liked so much? Oh my gosh. But Denny knew how to behave in the right situation. And that was his job, to be a mature Denny. And so he had little talks with me every now and then. And he said, Betty, you got to remember this, you got to remember that. I said, okay. Well, I also was not that sure about my faith. And so here we are, strict church college. I mean, nothing like that now. It was really heavy duty, strict. No this, no that, no a lot of things. And so it was really hard for me to act mature and religious, because like every morning they took roll call, at chapel, took roll call at chapel. And so I was, when they would pray, after the thing was all over. Yeah, I was not praying. I wasn't even thinking about God. I was writing a grocery list, while we were supposed to be praying. But so I squeaked by. Let me put it like that. I squeaked by, and it worked. It seemed to work because I think nobody realized how much work that was for me. And a 19-year-old faculty wife, goodness gracious, it was a heavy-duty role. So we were only here like 2 years, but in those 2 years, the boys were really my age. We were like very close to the same age. And the boys, oh my lordy, they played tricks on us. And I think eventually it wore off, but it got where, these little yellow things here are just, so I can find where, a little passage I want to read to you. When we first came home that night, to the apartment. It's easier for me to tell it. When we first came home that night, our honeymoon was like just a drive from Denver. We were married in Inglewood, Colorado, where I live. It was just a trip from there, to here. And that was our honeymoon. And I knew about the guys because I'd gotten a little taste of them ahead of time. When Denny would write stories to me, he'd write letters to me, and then we'd read, let's talk on the phone. The boys had a line upstairs. Do you remember that at all? No. Well, there was.
Before my time, I think.
Okay. So there was upstairs phone, and we'd have our lovey-dovey conversations, And I could tell that someone had picked it up, and I could hear guys snickering. And Denny would yell, "You guys get off the phone!" "Okay, Arch." But they'd make a little click, but you could tell they were still. And it made me really nervous. I sent him a box of homemade chocolate chips because I wanted him to know I was more grown up, than just 18 and a half. Well, barely 19 at that point. So I sent a really nice, more than once, shoebox full of chocolate chips. Those guys would open that box, and they'd have their fun with it. They might leave a few cookies for him. And they were just real hijinks, a lot of hijinks. And so I knew that this was going to be a challenge, but I didn't realize how much of a challenge. I'll never know who the guilty persons are, because they have kept it such a secret, the various things they did. And when we walked in, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, we got there, and I had visited the campus because I met his parents here. So we came into our side of the house. Thompson Hall is now Thomas Hall, takes up the whole block. But we just had a neat little house on the corner. 12 boys lived upstairs. Came into our side, and it was dark outside, and went straight through the living room to the bedroom, and we couldn't open the door, and it was locked. And they had locked it. The bedroom door, as a brand new wife. And we hunted for about an hour and a half. We found the key. Denny didn't even know we had a key. So he just said, I don't know how that was going to happen. We found it in the ice cube tray. And then we finally got in there that night, and I was thinking, I was really bummed out because I was naive. I was a brand new wife, and I hadn't had many experiences yet. And I thought, how's this going to work? We came into that bedroom, and I was looking at how nice it was. The wallpaper had huge flowers on it. I thought it was gorgeous. And the curtains were so pretty. Everything was really nice. And what's that old-fashioned bedspread with the tufts on it? Chenille? Yeah, bedspread, pink, and it was nice. And then I got kind of looking around, and there was a note on the ceiling. And it said, "We have wired the springs to your mattress to speaker system." I almost threw up. And Denny said, "Oh, that's just a joke. They don't know how to wire anything." He just had to talk to me down. They don't know how to wire anything. That's just a joke. And I said, "Okay," but that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my 2 years here. And every time something bad would happen, like one time, I don't know who really the truth about this either. We climbed in our bed, and the mattress fell straight to the floor. And it was so frightening and unnerving. And the first thing I said, the boys did this. He said, "Oh no, I'm sure that I just didn't put the boards on right." He was always kind of smoothing it over. Anyway, we were too tired. We just slept with it on the floor. And then sometime later in the day, he fixed it. Well, anyway, everything that happened is like, those boys did this again. And so one time I was up, I had a little job until school started, because I wasn't in classes yet, cleaning the Thompson Hall, even the boys' bathroom. Now, that doesn't gag you. Cleaning 12 boys in one bathroom upstairs, but that was my job. I got paid $3.50 a week, And that went straight into the jar because we were saving money for an electric mixer. and colored one. Anyway, I was up there, with my tools, and I was scrubbing around the base of the toilet, getting it all clean and everything. I always wore rubber gloves, and cold, just really sharp needle of water hit my neck. It was just like, what? And then I kind of looked up, and I had a little shadow, someone dashing away. And I thought, I saw what room he went in, and I'm pretty sure I'll never find out. Maybe I will. That was Chuck Emmerich. And so I thought, now see, Denny never knew that all this time that things would happen. He said, just don't worry about it, it's no big deal. I was going to get even with those guys, but I must never tell him. And so I just kind of finished what I was doing, I sauntered downstairs, and I knew Denny had, I don't know why he had it, I never asked him, why do you have a yellow water pistol, in your drawers? I just never thought about it, but I knew it was there. I filled it up with ice water. I kind of sauntered back up the steps, and I'd already taken my stuff down, and he was asleep on the cot right by the door. Several guys would be in one room like this, and I just, I just let him go. And I just flew down the stairs, and he was up in no time. This is why I'm sure it was him. And so we were going down the stairs. I was on the bottom, shooting up from above. And the water was all over the wallpaper. And you know who comes in the door at that time? Mr. Auchard. The perfect role model for young men, the scolder of his wife. And I'll just never forget it. Denny kind of looked, and he made a phony laugh. You can tell when people their laugh isn't legitimate. And it was kind of like, oh, you guys. I said, oh, that's not legitimate. He doesn't think this is funny. And so Chuck went back up. Denny and I went into our side. It separated with two huge sliding doors. It was a lovely old home. And that's what separated us from what I guess you'd call, not the living room, but there was probably a different name for it in the old days. The parlor. And then the steps went up here. So anyway, wait a minute, I lost it again. Come to this. That's right, bless your heart, my editor. See, I get sidetracked, just like, wait, what story was I telling? What story was I telling? Okay. Sandy said, he closed the doors. That's right, he did. We came into my side, our side, and it's kind of like this. Here's this big door, there on the other side. And he closed it behind him and leaned against the door like this and gave me this. It was about a 12-second lecture. He says, honey, that was to sweeten me up a little bit so I wouldn't be too mad. He says, you just can't. His arms are behind him like this, which looks more authoritative. He didn't mean it to be mean. It's just the way Danny was, he was a role model. He said, you just can't go along with the shenanigans of these guys. He said, you've got to remember, you're a faculty wife. It's like, and so I was not happy. I felt bad, like I'd been scolded. I felt like a kid. But it did not change my desire to get even with those guys. I'm not kidding. It's like somehow or other I wanted to let them know, you just can't mess with me. But it all kind of passed. And it just, now there was one more thing that happened that wasn't the guys, and I want to tell you about it. I couldn't find one day I couldn't find my diaphragm. You know what that is? You do, don't you? I needed to know, why is that missing? And I cannot tell you how close I came to just like John Wayne just going up to a surgeon and saying, okay, which one of you guys took my personal thing? I really, that's what I wanted to do so bad, and I had to calm myself down. And then I kept thinking, okay, maybe Carl and Glenna. Glenna was Denny's sister, and she and her husband lived across the street. And that house was still there. They lived in an apartment upstairs. And I thought, they're always joking around about stuff. I'm gonna call, and I was just feeling really indignant. Glenna answered the phone, and she says, hi, this is Glenna Bott. And I said, Glenna, did you steal my thing? You know, the word. And she says, what? I said, I can't find it anywhere. What? I think the boys took it. If you didn't take it, the boys took it. He said, Betty, wait a minute. Maybe you're still wearing it. And I said, oh my Lord, I never thought about that. And I went and checked, and I was. It been in me for a week. I was so scared. I said, oh, that can't be wise, that can't be safe. And so the Dr. Bell, do you remember him?
Yes.
Okay, his dad was a doctor, wasn't he? Yeah, and he was Denny's doctor when he had that awful bone marrow transplant. It was a serious injury that Denny had. But he was our doctor, and I called him. And I said, Dr. Bell, I told him what happened. I said, I didn't know it was in. I've had this in a week. He says, yeah, and? I said, well, isn't that kind of dangerous? I was really, and he said, not really. I said, well, shouldn't you check me or something? He said, why? And I said, like, there could be an infection. He said, no, and he was laughing. Almost cried. And he said, no, just take it out. I said, okay. And I was mortified. I just didn't want to go back to the doctor. I don't think I had to go back to see him ever again for any reason. And Denny didn't know it, so I just, the story, only the rest of the world knows it. In a book. But it was the kind of thing, the way I functioned then. Now, at this point, the stories that are in here are really about all kinds of things that went on here while I was here. That some of them were quite critical, and we would get through them. And I hate to go into more stories, but the gist of the book is that a whole lot happened in that 2 years that I was here. And the boys were so much a part of our life. Some of them would graduate and they were gone, and there would be new guys who came in. But the thing I realized while writing this book, writing stories is cathartic. They're memoir stories. And it's quite cathartic. And I realized afterwards, you know, those boys, we grew out of all that. We kind of grew up together because they stopped messing around, you know, having fun at my expense. And we were both becoming more mature. They were graduating, and I was, you know, graduating from teenagehood, I guess you'd say. So we actually came here in November, right after the wedding. Went to our hotel, and then the next 2 days, I think we drove here. So I was barely 19. I just turned 19. And we left here in 51 because Danny had to go to Greeley to work on his, finish his master's degree and start his doctorate, actually. And the biggest part of this book, I think, that makes it part of the history of this school is the story about the fire. Because that was, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. We lived right across the street. And Jimmy Kuntz had given me a ride, Fred's brother had given me a ride home from choir practice at the church. We had church down at the, what's the name of that church now? Where we went to church.
East Avenue.
East Avenue.
And it's on the corner of,
Eighth
yeah.
and
Well, that's where
Copeland.
we sang every Sunday. And so he had given me a ride there and home. And he dropped me off, and I was just saying goodbye to him when he was looking past me, and he said, oh my God. And I said, what? And smoke was coming out. And so he said, quick, go in and tell Denny. And he zoomed away, and they didn't live very far away. And Denny called real quickly, but you could already hear the fire engines coming. So that story about that fire was, and how we managed for the rest of the school year, And they even stayed open, didn't they, 2 more years after that? Was it 3 years after the
Yes.
fire?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that whole thing about that experience, and then Denny didn't know how they were gonna carry on with classes, and how they did was just funny. It was like camping out at college, you know, and it was really, Denny was inside of one of the basement of the ad building, trying to rescue, because he taught math and science, trying to rescue all the stuff from his physics class. And the boys upstairs joined him, and they were we saw him carrying out all kinds of stuff and just putting it down wherever they could put it. Filing cabinets, whatever you could get your hands on, just dump them. And he was in there so long, I was just ready to fall apart. I was just really scared. But when he finally came out, I said, "What took you so long?" And he said, "Well, at the last minute when we were just grabbing whatever we could off of desks and stuff." And so he had grabbed a fan, which I still have. I said, "You risked your life for this fan." We still have that fan. It's so heavy, and it still works. But the fire itself is such a turning point for the school. Of course, by then, when we left, they still had a couple more years they were going to manage without a proper rooming. But it was really, they managed okay, but they did have to finally close. And what we did was turn right around, and Denny got a kind of like a scholarship, they have to call it something else, where he was teaching math to junior high kids at Greeley, the State Teachers College. And he could work on his doctorate at the same time if we would be dorm parents to these 36 women. So we went right straight into another dormitory. And that was a whole different life. It was more my job than his.
Easier?
What?
Easier?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. But that's when Danny decided, you know, we could actually start our family. And I said, "Oh, tonight?" He said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "You know, because look, this is going to work. I can easily know we're not," because we talked about when, we just can't start a family for quite a while. So Dave was conceived there, in the girls' dorm. I mean, that's the truth. And born in, have any of you ever been to Greeley?
Yes.
Okay, the hospital is still there, I think, but it's used for something else. It was an old hospital, dark brick. There were no toilets in the rooms. You know, no matter what bad shape you had to kind of get down the hall to the bathroom. But it was, and then we were moving right away. We were going to get that baby home, learn how to take care of it, pack up, and move to his job in Emporia, Kansas. That's what we thought we were going to do. We didn't end it. Denny left. He had to leave me behind because I couldn't travel. So I was in the girls' dorm when freshmen were coming. This new baby and this mother, you know. So it was like a part of my life that I think, oh my gosh, phew, I'm glad I'm old. Anyway, do you have any questions? We can wrap it up with questions, answers. I'm so glad Sandy was here. Say, well, that was chapter 2. Yeah.
I just want to say that I remembered you always when you came with Denny as a new bride. I was your same age. And you sang, Christopher Robin was saying his prayers, and I still can't.
Yeah, I will never forget that. That was an impromptu thing. It was a huge audience. I don't know where we were.
I don't know what it was.
It was like a theater, a whole bunch of seats. But Jimmy was good at kind of spontaneously coming up with some ideas. And so he talked to me about singing that. He knew I had sung it, I don't know where. But he said, "Could you put together a little, I don't know, a little skit or something that goes with that? Don't just get on and sing Christopher Robin." And so I dreamed up a little tiny skit as though I was the nurse of Christopher Robin. You know, it was real short. And there was something about so many people. It was a huge audience. Now, maybe I did it more than once. That I don't remember. I only remember the first time.
I only remember one time, but
Yeah.
I thought it was at a college auditorium.
It was big.
auditorium.
And it was so big that I wasn't scared, as I couldn't see anyone. You know, it was like a mass of people. It went so well. I do remember that, because I felt nervous about it, but it went so well.
It was just beautiful.
That's so neat, because I remember that so well, and to have you say, because I don't know if anyone said that was nice, Betty. You know, when you're traveling, you just do your job. You don't compliment your fellow. No, I just have to give you a hug. Because that was special to me. That was, you remember it, and you liked it.
I did.
Well, tell everybody.
What is the song? What's the song?
Oh, Christopher, let's see. There's a piece, it's called Christopher Robin that Sang His Prayers. And it ends real gently and softly. That was like, yeah, there was a lead up to it, and finally he's settling down, he's singing his prayers. So it's almost like you're tiptoeing out of the room. It's, I don't know where that song came from, or where I found it.
I read it in Childcraft. We had Childcraft
we
for
did
our
too.
children,
Yeah,
and it was in there
yeah,
without music, I think.
yeah. But somewhere, I got hold of the music, because whoever accompanied, I don't know who it was then, played the piano. It wasn't a cappella, I don't think.
No.
But that's nice, thanks for sharing that. Do you have any questions? Anyone?
Could you share the story about the wine?
Oh, okay, okay.
That was such a funny story.
Okay, okay. The fact that, I'm gonna take a little sip of water, but I forgot that. The fact that so many things were forbidden. Okay, when I met Denny in Denver, it wasn't here in New York, it was in Denver. He was different when I met him. We danced. We used to go to Elitch Gardens in Denver, do you know that? And they still are functioning. And neither of us had a lot of dancing behind us, but we just sure learned. We just danced so freely there. And we dated, and we went to a really nice restaurant, and we weren't used to having alcohol. Not that my family didn't, but we weren't used to having alcohol. Denny was not, his dad was a country preacher. So we went to a nice restaurant where they had wine, and they had something that was cooked in wine. The meat was in a wine, I don't know what it was. And then the dessert had wine. And we felt so worldly. It's like, we didn't like the taste of the wine too much, but we pretended. We didn't want to go, oh, you know, like looking like we'd never done this before. And so we were just fascinated. The food was so good, and the dessert, especially the dessert, was wonderful. And so we always wanted to buy some wine so I could learn to cook with wine. But no, there's no way I could have bought it here. No way at all. And so one night he did, what do you call it? What do you call it? The games. Yeah, the word.
Referee?
What? What? Referee, yeah, so I couldn't hear that word even. Yes, he refereed for a lot of games and got some extra money. So one night when we were, actually I should find it in here, but because it's faster, I think, do you know where it is, Sandy? I'll work up to it. So we just didn't know when we would be able to buy some wine, so I could find out from somebody how to cook with it, because it was just a lovely day. We wanted to duplicate it on our own, privately, without anyone knowing it at the college. And so we were in, what was the town? What was it?
Hastings.
Hastings, yeah, for a game that he was refereeing, football game. And so, okay, so the evening we drove to his first moonlighting job in Hastings, Nebraska, I thought about how different Denny seemed since we moved to York. I had begun to wonder why I'd been attracted to such a buttoned-up guy. While teaching and living with students, my husband projected a sober, serious side. When he wasn't under scrutiny, he transformed back into the relaxed and fun guy I'd fallen in love with. I was so relieved. That night, I discovered even more about his adventurous side. It was all because we had trouble finding a parking place. The whole town had turned out to support the Broncos, and it took us a while to locate an empty slot 2 blocks from the campus. After setting the brake and removing the keys, he said, "Hey, look where we've landed." "What do you mean?" "Look what's in front of us." "You mean this place called Larry's Liquors?" "Oh yeah, Betty, do you know what I'm thinking?" "I think I know what you're thinking." We had talked about buying wine someday to remind us of a memorable date at the Blue Parrot Inn in Denver. Drinking a glass of Merlot with the gourmet dinner made us feel sophisticated. Then the dessert of ice cream drizzled with wine sauce gave us a happy glow. After Denny paid the bill and tipped the waiter, contentment spread over us like a warm blanket. Of course, it's possible we'd just gotten a bit tipsy. Whatever it was, we wanted to experience it again. But the campus no imbibing rule regarding alcoholic beverages kept us from even cooking with wine. We had no idea how or where we could purchase a bottle until finding that parking place in front of Larry's Liquors. That's when I realized Jenny had decided to buy our forbidden fruit juice right here in Hastings, 61 miles from York, where no one knows but God. We didn't know how to shop in a liquor store and were baffled by all the options. Denny kept his lips from moving as he muttered, "Act natural," like we're studying the selections. "Will do." My lips didn't move either. I was faking when I said "will do," wanting him to feel comfortable. I had no more idea than he did what to buy. My dad bought lots of dark wine, red wine, so I thought it was the only color available. Being surrounded by bottles filled with numerous shades of liquid overwhelmed me. Confusion reigned until I spied a glitzy container with the grapevine pattern molded into the glass. I said, "I love this bottle." Daddy said, "What's inside is pretty too." The gold label revealed the name, Manischewitz. Manischewitz is not used for just care. I mean, what do they use it for? Services. They use it for Jewish services, Passover and stuff. Okay, we didn't know that. That's very strange. The gold label revealed the name, Manischewitz. Everything about it looked elegant. We bought a bottle and hid it under a blanket in the trunk of the car. Learning how to add the forbidden liquid to recipes seemed exciting. I was eager to get back to York and talk to his sister Glenna, a superb cook. She probably knew all about the subject. We would invite her and Carl to be guests in our first gourmet meal. Our plan thrilled me, mostly because Jenny and I had connected again. I found it hard to believe my reserved husband had purchased a beverage we had to hide under a blanket in the car and then conceal it behind the milk in our refrigerator at home. What an eye-opener. We were living on the edge. Now, I did cook a meal for Carl and that was pretty interesting. I think the most interesting one was when I poured the wine directly on top of the ice cream, because it looked like baby spit up. It curdled and it was, pretty bad. I pretended every bite was just great. But we'll never forget, we still laugh about, Carl is still living, but we would still laugh about that dinner. "You remember your gourmet dinner?" I said, "Yes." Anyway, that's, you could read this dinner part by yourself.
And then at the end of the story too, you were so concerned that somebody was going to find the wine that you dumped out the last of it.
Oh, yes. See,
You didn't
that's
keep it.
right. I'm glad you remembered that. I had to go leave. I had to leave Denny at a very critical time to go with the choir on tour. During that time, they were having a terrible, terrible situation here where they were going to fire the coach because he did bad things, like he swore now and then. He drank beer sometimes when they won a game. Sometimes when they won a game, they'd steal a towel or two. And they were bringing everyone in to question them about the coach. Now, Denny was he was the helper, the coach's helper. What do you call that? Assistant. Assistant is a hard word to remember. He was the assistant coach. And I was gone. And we were talking by phone and sometimes by letter. And he was a wreck because we had that wine, the leftover wine. We didn't like it that much, so it just stayed hidden. But there it was while I was gone. And he said, I'm supposed to talk tomorrow. They're going to talk to me tomorrow. And he said, what can I do? I can't lie about it. Well, we've got wine in our refrigerator. And I was just a wreck. Really, I felt just sick. I couldn't even sing one night. I was so upset. And Jimmy Kuntz in the line, as we were going into this church in California, I felt, oh, like I was going to lose it. And I said, Jimmy, I feel like I'm going to throw up. He said, get out of line! I remember he said, get out of line! And so I found a place to lie down in an empty part of the church, and I cried. I just lay there and cried. I thought, I don't know what's going to happen with this. Then the next day I called him, and I said, so what's happened? He says, well, here's what happened. They decided to fire him. They didn't need to talk to me. And I was so relieved. And then when we got home, Carl and Glenn and I, we just wanted to hear all the details. And he said, I want to tell you that I think I was just a wreck with that bottle of wine in the fridge. And he said, but, so what I did was, it was in a nice bottle, you know. And he says, I poured it into a mason jar so it looked like beet juice. Because he had said in a letter, I put the beet juice, I thought, beet juice? You know, and that's what he was referring to, was the wine. And he says, I poured it into a smaller jar of beet juice. And so later he said, the beet juice in the letter, the beet juice was turning bad, so I had to throw it out. And so when we got home, they said, well, what did you do with the bottle? And that bottle is what I loved. And he said, we couldn't keep the bottle. It was obvious what it was for, and I had to get rid of it. So in the middle of the night, when the boys were asleep, he wrapped the bottle in newspaper, layers of newspaper, and he found a gunny sack bag, and he bundled it, and he went down in the basement. They were clear on another floor, not up here. And he says, you got a hammer, and he just whacked it, and he'd shake it, and they could hear him, he just whacked it. He says, I just whacked. You can't whack quietly. You know, and he just cut it all, and he tied it all up, and he put it in the bottom of the junk, you know, whatever else crud was in that thing. So that's how the wine ended. And I kept thinking that Glenna could help us. Glenna, you know, help me with some recipes. She says, I wouldn't have wine in the house. But that night they enjoyed it. Not the curdled ice cream, but what was left over, we put little bits and we just sipped it. She said, we should have done this in the first place. But that's where we went astray, you know, and kept it a secret. But now that's another secret everyone will know. I'll be dead by then, but so, if word gets around. So is that any other little... The other story about making a baby, we'll let them read that one.
I think we learned all about your children, too.
Well, then I sent the book, several people read, I think my R's up. I sent the book to several people, women and men, and these guys were two of them, to read it, to give me any feedback or a compliment, or not a compliment, but make comments about the book. And that was actually... I waited that out, not sure what different people would say, you know. And so it looked like everything was going to be okay with that. And see, I even forgot where I was going with this. You have to come to every program. So what was it? Did you ask me a question? Did I just make this up? Whatever it was.
You're ad-libbing.
I'm ad-libbing right now. But the thing was, I was leaning towards something. Oh, yeah, I got it back. See, if I wandered just a little bit, it comes back. So I sent it to them when it was all finished together. One of the people I sent it to is a book reviewer who lives in Dallas. And she had reviewed my second book, and I really liked her a lot. And she read, just as these guys did for me, she said, I really liked the book. But now I want to know about these children. that, you're real children, not the fake mother that you were to these boys. What about the real children? I hadn't thought about that. So I talked to Sandy and Bruce about it, and they said, that sounded fine. So we had about...
Whoa. You haven't talked to me about it.
No, I didn't talk to the kids. They did not talk to the kids. They would just have to read what I wrote, because I didn't want their permission to write what I was going to write. But I wasn't going to embarrass them too much. But they embarrass easily. So anyway, that was 11 pages, I think, and it was fun. It's fun to wrap up that thing with, it was fun for me. And then I let each of the kids read it. I let you read it, didn't I? Sure I did. He just...
I didn't have to edit.
He read it.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy about it.
Well, anyway, they're good little quick short stories about what these kids were like growing up, and the things that stick in my mind about when they were growing, and then what they were doing now, what their lives are like, just a short thing, so it's not goes. So, and I like it. I'm glad, that she suggested that, because I think it was a good addition to it. And then in the back there are about 11 pages of the history lessons, but it doesn't name each chapter that it's referring to. So if you wanted to go back, you see this, you could just hop back to that chapter and see where was that mentioned even. But anything else? Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but when anyone who buys it from York College, it goes into a scholarship fund. So buy 2 if you don't want 2, buy 3.
They make good gifts.
What?
They make good gifts.
Yeah, they do. It's upbeat, actually. It's upbeat. There are a lot of serious places in there, but I think they're woven in well, don't you? I think we did a good job. So, anything else?
I just want to say, in the book of Dancing in My Nightgown, I have a friend who comes back from Denver once a month to visit our reunion, our class of 46. And he reads the book too. And we keep laughing about the passage in that one book where you said you hadn't taken care of finances before, and you kept getting this bill and you kept sending the money, and finally they said, Betty, that's a credit, quit sending money.
I couldn't understand why my bill was, you guys, I didn't know how to put gas in my car. And it just kept going on. I said, I haven't paid that bill, now it's higher. And so, and I phoned two places, and I asked them, and the first person says, I have no idea. So I phoned Mervin's, which is now closed, and she says, oh, Mrs. Auchard, please stop sending us money. I had paid Ed for about 3 months on the phone bill. The gas, when I did learn how to put gas in my car, I was so thrilled. I had the instructions written down, because my neighbor was sick of taking me down. She said, get these instructions down. And so I had them written on a piece of paper, and I thought, okay, today's the day. And I went down. I'm scared of gas stations. In the movies, they're always blowing up. But I knew I would be the one to cause it, and I really was scared of it. And so I tried to act, I can still feel it. I tried to act casual, and I pull it a bit, and then I forget what to do, and I go back like I was looking for something, I check my list. And so when I finally got it all done, it's just like I won some kind of election or something. I felt so happy. I like, oh boy, if I did that, I can do anything. If I could do that, my biggest fear. And I was driving away, smiling. I couldn't stop smiling. And I remember reading somewhere, you look your best when you smile. And I just was smiling. I couldn't stop it. And I was at a stoplight. And I noticed this man next door. He kept looking at me. And I thought, I bet he's going to flirt with me. Now this was like 3 years after Daddy died. It wasn't like right after he died. But I thought, he's still looking. And I just couldn't stop smiling. I said, I've got to smile more often. And then his window rolled down, and that's what I rolled mine down. I said, yes? He said, ma'am, you're a gas cap. I said, gas cap? What's a gas cap? I tried to be real cool, honestly. Oh, thank you. And I said, gas cap. And I had to park, and there it was hanging on. I forgot about that thing. It was just, but the instructions were important because I just couldn't remember them. And it was, and I used to be in plays a lot, so I could act it out like, oh, let's see, what did I need in here? Oh yeah, now I do this. But I was afraid, I've heard of people being hooked up. Driving along. You did it?
With my mom.
It just horrifies me. Like, I'm
We
surprised.
laughed a lot.
Oh my gosh, it scares me to death. It thought, like, why didn't you explode? It doesn't.
It has a discount.
She did too.
We had a friend who did that.
Yeah.
She just howls about it.
Yeah.
It's
pretty startling.
Miles, I think, but
Drove off with it still in the gas tank.
Oh my gosh, it horrifies me.
What? She got a bill for $100.
Yeah, they're not sure, don't do it.
You're lucky it was only 100.
That should cause an
Oh, there's memories. Listen, you guys know the difference between a memoir and a, autobiography, don't you?
No.
Do you? There's a difference.
No.
What, autobiography doesn't sound kind of dry and, doesn't it? Does it sound like stories? Doesn't really. It's just facts about where you live, how many kids you had, how many divorces you had, where you worked, awards you won. They're just all facts. And actually, they've got a new term for memoir writers now. It's no longer just nonfiction. It's called creative nonfiction. Because you have to use storytelling devices, which are different from a biography. But I had to learn that, I was writing like a journalist, just get the facts down. Who, what, where, when, or why. I remember in school. And I had to learn a lot of stuff, and I had good teachers, and I just love it, I'm a little bit addicted to it. But anyway, anything else? Anything else?
Back to the gas, was it credit card or cash those days when you learned to put gas in the car? Were you using credit card or cash to pay the gas?
I always use the
What
credit
was a
card.
credit card?
Yeah, that's what I
You mean
said.
to pay for the gas?
Yeah, what
The first
era-
The card.
What era was that? You had credit card?
Yeah, and it was, that was not easy. There's a lot of stuff to read and
Do it, pull it out quickly and.
all this stuff. That was the safe stuff. The gas was the scary stuff.
You spoke of Jim Coons. I don't know whether you were in the choir or one time in the chapel when he was helping us get the Negro spiritual sit-down servant.
Yes, I remember that.
And so we were there, and of course we were all standing up, and he was really wanting a special something about that. So he said, "Sit down, servant." So Jim Berkland and I sat down.
Was that during a presentation or a practice? Program? During the program?
No,
Oh, okay.
practice.
Okay. Well, he was scary sometimes. Your brother was sometimes scary.
Oh, you're scared me.
I cleared my throat a lot. He'd stop us singing. I'm clearing. All right, hear the way she clears her throat? I don't want to hear anyone doing that, because you're damaging your vocal cords. Jimmy, I have that. He says, then just stay well. Your obligation is to stay well. No, he was really fun. He was a lot of fun. I appreciated him. He was very strict.
Oh, he was good.
Yeah, and we had a great choir. I think they still do. I think it was one of the legacies of our legacy. Anyway, we got a good deal. Thank you so much.